Hi, my name is Davida Bagatelle, and I am so excited to be here and to work with everyone on helping you not to worry and be happy, whether it be finding downtime or finding ways to calm your mind when the time is right. Um, First thing I want to say before I turn it over to Angela is I'm really excited that everybody chose to come here. And I just want to say that as a teacher and as an individual, I really find it important that not only that I respect myself, but I respect the people who are in my space with me when I'm working or playing or listening to whatever. And so the only thing I ask of everyone who's here, which I trust you all will, as adults, young adults, is to respect yourselves and to respect everybody else's time and effort. And also, we'd love to see everyone, so we'd like to ask you to turn your cameras on. And so those are the three things that I'm asking of you today, besides having a good time.
Great. Thank you, Davida. So my name is Angel Goss. I'm really excited to have you all here. And one of the things that Davida and I talked about when we wanted to do this workshop is we know that you have had a really tough time this past year or year and a half, and some of you may be harder than others, some of you easier than others, but overall it's been a lot to be social distancing, maybe not seeing your friends or family. So we wanted this time to be just a time for us to find ways to be in school and also be relaxed, to reduce our stress in some way. Okay. So we wanted to start by talking about different types of rest. So there are 7 types of rest. How many of you can imagine that there are 7 different types of rest? Yeah, Olivia has her thumb up. Okay, good. So we're going to look at.
I can't imagine that. What?
Yeah, I thought that's a lot. Yeah, so let's look at, we're going to talk about the different types of rest. So one is a physical rest. And the physical rest can literally mean just stopping, right? Sometimes we can be physically exhausted. We're running around, we're doing a lot of different things. Maybe we're doing household chores. Maybe we're taking care of siblings. Maybe we're working a lot during this time. Maybe we're just up and down doing things. And sometimes we just need physical rest. Sometimes just keeping our eyes open can be a lot. So that is one type of rest, literally stopping, literally doing nothing. And sometimes that's easy to do for some of us. Some of us are overachievers, and the idea of being still seems overwhelming and can create a little anxiety. But sometimes just stopping for 10 minutes is enough. Stopping and breathing might be one thing to do, just a physical rest. Another type of rest, mental rest. Do you ever feel like your brains have turned to mush? Like you can't complete a sentence or a thought? Sometimes in this COVID situation, all the things we have to do to pay attention to Zoom, to which link do we need to do, to what time is class, to what do we do in between class, to do we have a mask? All of those things can really overwhelm our minds. And so sometimes you might even find that you're staring at the same page in a book for 10 minutes and you haven't made any progress. So sometimes mental rest is just switching to something that's more relaxing, something that is sort of mindless. Maybe it's watching TV, maybe it's watching Netflix, maybe it's just staring out the window for a little while. Sometimes we need that mental rest where we're not bringing in more things, we're just being still, we're just letting our minds wander. Sometimes that mental rest is just having a lower gaze and just kind of staring at one thing for a while. Another thing is social rest. So that's the third type of rest. Sometimes socializing is great. Lots of friends, spending time together, but sometimes as we're finding that Zoom, it can be overwhelming. All of the different faces to look at, all the different people to talk to, all of the different things that are going on. Sometimes that socializing can be too much. Sometimes we need to rest from that. We need to rest from the people in our house sometimes, our little brothers or sisters, or our older brothers and sisters. Sometimes we need to rest from our parents, right? We just need to take a break. We need to be by ourselves for a little bit. Sometimes there's that social rest. It can also mean that you need the social rest that you need to be with friends. You need a little time outside to connect with people. So there may be 2 different ways that we socially rest: away from people that are maybe draining us, overwhelming us, and sometimes a way to connect with people that we can have a one-on-one or hang out with just a few friends that know us well. Another type of rest is creative rest. And we're going to talk a bit more about that later on in our workshop. But that creative rest is a way to think outside the box, to maybe problem solve, maybe to go back to things like puzzles or Legos or drawing or building things, right? That creativity, that we're not doing the things that are, linear, taking notes, reading something, maybe, or maybe that creativity is reading a book that brings you to a different place. So there's that type of creative rest too. Sometimes some of you are really good at that, drawing a lot. That is what you do when you need to rest, when you need to take your mind off of it. Some of us don't think about that as a first way to rest. Sometimes that just moving the pencil or pen or marker, whatever you're using, can be a way to create a rest. And we're going to do some more of that later on today. Another one is emotional rest. Sometimes you get emotional rest by just listening, by just having someone to talk to, having someone who can listen to you, someone who can hear what your thoughts are, where you're overwhelmed. Sometimes that's yourself. Sometimes emotional rest is journaling. Maybe you're writing down some of those things and thoughts that you're feeling. Another way to sort of pause, to get things out of your head onto paper. Maybe that is journaling negative things that are happening. Maybe it's journaling things that make you happy. Maybe it's doing a gratitude journal. Maybe it's writing a poem or a song, or just something that's getting your thoughts out of your head that can be filled with so many things and onto paper, whether that's writing those in words or again in some kind of drawing. Another one is spiritual rest. Spiritual rest can help you feel like you're not in this alone, that it's not totally your responsibility to do this thing. Spiritual rest can be being outside in nature, sort of looking at nature and the big parts of it, like an ocean, the small parts of it, like a ladybug. Spiritual rest can be praying if you have a faith that connects you with that. Spiritual rest can be just being still. It can be doing yoga. It can be taking a walk through nature. Spiritual rest is really about seeing something greater than yourself, not feeling like you have the full burden of everything that you're feeling. So spiritual rest is another way to stop and to pause. And then the last one here is sensory rest. Sensory rest can be one of the biggest drainers. You can just feel like there's so much noise or chatter or movement, just a lot of things. Some of us are particularly sensitive to that. Touch can be something that feels too much, or if something is too loud, it can feel overwhelming. So sometimes we need a sensory rest. And one way to do sensory rest is maybe to listen to music that we enjoy. Maybe it's a way to have silence. Sometimes nothing on. Some people do really well with that. Some people, for them, that's overwhelming. So really, each of these rests are different ways that you can pause throughout your day to find a way to take the break that you need. So I hope that as you think about these different types of rest, or as I read, physical rest, mental, social, creative, emotional, spiritual, and sensory, you were able to think about some ways that you might participate in rest. Maybe you find one that you definitely want to try out. And that's what we're hoping this workshop is today, that you find some ways to take a break from all of the things that may be overwhelming you during this current environment that we're in.
So one of the things that many of us like to do is to doodle or to draw when we're finding ways to get within ourselves and relax, or to be mindful of where we are. And I don't know how many of you actually doodle, draw, sometimes just make shapes in color. But during the school day, one of the things, or even during home, is to have a chance to play around with your expression of who you are and what you like. And you can do that by sometimes writing your name, drawing pictures of what you like, or even embedding within drawing a little bit of your personality. So here are some examples. We all know in the early grades, we learn to write our ABCs, and everybody says they have to be perfect and they have to be shaped just the right way, and that your handwriting needs to be legible. And it is important that when you're writing or drawing that people can recognize it, but it's also fun to play with letters and to play with numbers and to play with words in your name. And so here's 4 examples of the way people might take letters of the alphabet and turn them into a creative, relaxing art that they can then use to decorate, make posters, write their name. And I can't see the Zoom at the same time, but how many of you actually play around with your signature or your name to kind of give it some pizzazz or a little bit of swag? Anybody ever do that during the day or when you're home. I know I used to spend hours trying to make my signature look awesome when I was in high school. And the first one is basically just taking the letters and coloring them, as is the second one on the right. But the bottom ones are a little more creative. The one on the left is just making bubble letters and decorating them with colors and dots and lines. I'm not a great artist, but I particularly think that those bottom right three are so beautiful. It's the letter R, V, and X made with symbols from nature. And some people who are really great artists, you know, can enliven their artwork with letters by turning them into animals or shapes or things in nature. So those are some examples that by no means I can do all the time or expect anyone else to do. Want to share those. We'll go to the next slide, Angel. So what we did, I'll speak to mine and then Angel can speak to hers. On the right at the top is a tree with a little animal and a snake. The other day I was at a meeting and I was trying to relax and listen and still at the same time occupy some time. And I started to draw a tree, and then I thought about today's presentation. And I said, let me see if I can take my initials of my name and turn it into a picture in the tree. And so the D, the J, and the B ended up being a little animal in the tree with his tail and then a snake climbing up. So that's an example of that creative or creative relaxation to where you can do something while you're listening and then end up with something that reflects who you are. And then the bottom one, my husband happened to go to China, and this is a very typical kind of thing for tourists, is they ask you to give them the name of a family member or a loved one, and they turn it into a poster. And so I thought that was quite beautiful. That is way beyond anything I could do. But that's my first name written with very traditional Chinese symbols and animals. And then Angel, do you want to speak to yours?
Sure. So again, like Davida, I'm not very crafty either. So I just wrote my name in two different ways. So you see Angel on the top two. And then I just added some different shapes. So one has like triangles, the other one, then N has hearts in it. The G has diamonds, the E has stars, and the L has just swirls. So again, something you can use the word science or math or I don't know, isosceles triangle or Civil War or whatever you're doing, you could use this as you're doing notes. The other one here is my name just in capital letters, and then in cursive I wrote the same word, so my name again, in cursive across it. So this might be something that you're doing as you're listening.
So this video is sort of taking what we just did between what Angel talked about with relaxing and taking a break. But also what I really think is important is that when you take a break, but you're at school, sometimes it's important to be able to use your breaks to engage your mind better into academics. Because while we're here to talk about not worrying and being happy, the reality is all of you go to school. And so how do you maintain that sense of relaxation from 7:40 or whatever time your school day starts until the bell rings to go home? And so one thing that I have taught when I was in the classroom and believe that students need to learn to listen, but also to use both parts of their brain, is to do what's called note sketching. And so what we're going to do is watch a very short video, goes a little quickly, but we'll review it afterwards and then do a little practicing. So here we're going to embed the idea of taking notes, being creative, using our visual relaxation, and also enhancing our learning. So Angel will start the video, and everybody hopefully will be, those of you who can't hear, maybe we can somehow post it later and you can watch it at home. I still apologize that Devin can't hear us. All right,
Okay.
Angel. Oh.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, we're so good. We're going to watch it again.
Sorry.
So how many of you have ever done anything like this in your classroom where you're taking notes and you've doodled something on the side while the teacher was talking that was a visual?
Great.
Anybody else?
Good.
Okay. So what we're going to do, it's almost 10 of 11. So we have about, I don't know, 6
That's
minutes.
okay. Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that we are in a class and we're going to take a topic that I had assumed from my experiences that high schoolers have at least had a little bit of exposure to and in the sciences. And so if you've got your pencil and a piece of paper, I would ask that you have that with you. And oh, one more thing, Angela, I'm sorry. You want to go to the next slide? We'll quickly do this.
Okay. Yeah.
I had forgotten. So now that I've got the slide presentation up. So one of the things is that was a pretty awesome artist. And that's by no means anything that's way beyond my skills. And so one of the things that I wanted to say real quickly is there's very simple structures that everybody can draw. We've got the 7 structures here that are dots, lines, squiggles, circles, triangles, and squares. And using those basic shapes, you can probably remember in elementary school that you made a house out of a triangle for the roof, a square for the circle, and a rectangle for the chimney, and then you squiggled smoke coming out and made rectangles for doors and windows. Or people, if you're doing a stick figure, it's just a bunch of circles and lines. And so here's the opportunity to think about how you can take a picture that you want to draw and make it out of the 7 basic shapes. And you don't have to be a super duper artist to do that. So keep in mind those 7 shapes. You want to go to the next slide, Angela?
We'll
And
just
this
skip
one-
this one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And so how many of you, or maybe you haven't, have heard of the word photosynthesis? That's a science word. I'm going to pretend like you're in my classroom.
Thank you.
We're going to do a quick little presentation. So I won't call it lecture. I'm going to speak briefly about some concepts of photosynthesis. And for the first idea, I'm hoping that you will listen, you will read, and you will take your own notes and try to incorporate a little note sketching. So let's start. So photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a process that all plants use to make their own food. And you've learned in the past that there are 2 kingdoms that we've talked about, the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. And the animal kingdom is made up of us, all the animals roaming the world, mammals, spiders, and we have to consume food. We have to eat our own food. It'd be great if we could make our food, but we can't. Plants, on the other hand, make their own food, and they do it through the process called photosynthesis.
Yeah, so as you're listening to this, you can look at some key words: plants, food, photosynthesis. Maybe those are some of the things that you start to draw as you take your notes here. Do you want me to go to the next slide?
Why don't we wait just a second, because the next slide shows my note sketching. I don't want anyone to.
Okay.
And so if you want to stop the note sharing, if anyone wants to share their, oh, I can see it on the Zoom. Does anybody, give them another 30 seconds. And if anyone wants to share what they've got so far, that'd be awesome. I see everybody, anyone who's got their cameras on, Angel, everybody's busy looking down and working.
Yeah, I see. That's
awesome.
Great. Yeah, so I think, one of the things that I liked about that video is it was about making this your own. So when you think about making it your own, you can think about, what do you think about for plants? That's a way for it just to be visual. And food, you could make a hamburger, you could make pizza, like you can make whatever your food is. Maybe that even helps you if you're trying to manage your hunger before lunchtime. So any of these things can help you connect to it, and you can pick any of these words to make it into something that's meaningful for you and also connects to what you're learning.
So why don't we go ahead, because we're going to make sure we do a couple more. So let's look at, this is mine. And so you can see what I did here is I took the word plants and I turned the P into a tree to make sure I remembered that we're talking about plants. And then producers, which I didn't say, I missed that, I'm sorry. They make their own food. And so when I think of producers, which is the formal science term for what plants are versus us being consumers, I put pictures of produce. So I would remember producers are plants, and plants make their own food. And I get those in the produce department. And then for consumers, I drew a funky little picture from just using those shapes of rectangles and squiggles to show that consumers open their mouth and eat. We'll go to this one. This is the last one. Oh, why don't you go to the next one, Angel? Is the one? Okay, here we go.
Do you want this one?
Yeah, because we didn't do the last one. That's right.
Sure.
So photosynthesis occurs in the leaves of plants. And all of you have seen leaves and you know that they're green. And so that's what's happening in the plant, that the sun shines, it shines on the green leaves of the plant. And the plants have within the cells, organelles called chloroplasts. And chloroplasts are what make the leaves green. And so that's why in the winter, you're not seeing green leaves, because the plants they're resting over the winter. And then when their leaves come out, they make their food in their chloroplasts, because now their leaves are out to catch the sun. And during the winter, it's stored energy in the trunk. So again, photosynthesis occurs because of sunlight shining down, the organelles in the leaves, which are called chloroplast, convert that energy into food for the plants.
Okay, this is an example of Davida doing that. So there you've got photosynthesis, you need the sun for that, chloroplast, it's the green, and the organelles. I was even thinking about plants resting, so maybe you have a hammock with a plant resting in the winter. I like how she took the word leaves and put a leaf in the letter V there. So again, just other ways to use letters and the shapes, highlighting processed plants used to make food, so it's bolding, it's standing out. So these are great ways to really use your notes as visual reminders of what you're learning.
And so the last thing I'll say, and then maybe, Angel, we only have a couple more minutes, but maybe we want to jump to the Zentangles, because I think they're great. And then we can skip the last slide since we didn't.
Yep, go ahead.
So one of the things too is, I don't know anything about your classrooms and your teachers and what their expectations are. And so if, as you're doing notes, teachers, some may think that you're not paying attention because you're drawing or doodling. This is also something that you can do by adding when you get home, because one of the things that all teachers hope you do when you take notes in school is to go home and read your notes and go over them, so that the next day when you come to class, you're prepared to discuss what you learned. And that's where you could doodle and draw in on the margins, pictures, but also then when you go back and study for your tests, you will have those visual images to prompt you or remind you of what that means. And then when you go to take the test, those images will be impressed on your mind. And I bet you'll find that they will help you recall and remember more than just trying to memorize the words.
So thank you so much for joining us. The rest of you, I hope you learned something and practice this where you are. Davida, do you want to close out with one more thing?
I do, and I hope you all enjoy your day, and thank you so much for participating, and it's great to see you this morning. So hope you find any and all of this helpful at some point in your life. Bye.